Imagine a world where even the mightiest predator walks the earth. And yet, there's one creature that's never found with a single bite mark from it. That's right. The Tyrannosaurus rex, known as the king of the dinosaurs, roamed the land at the end of the Cretaceous. It wasn't just the biggest theropod, but also the largest land carnivore ever to live. Anything it came across was usually fair game. And through the years, numerous animals like the well-armored Triceratops, massive Hadrosaurus, and even titanic sauropods have been found with damage linked to T-Rex bites. But there's one dinosaur that never had its bones marked by the jaws of the T-Rex, the Ankylosaurus. Despite the T-Rex's terrifying abilities, this armored giant managed to stay off its menu. How did it do that? When you think of dinosaurs with powerful defenses, the Ankylosaurus undoubtedly comes to mind. First discovered in the early 1900s, this armored giant left paleontologists in awe. Its mix of bones, teeth, and osteoderms were found in the famous Hell Creek Formation of Montana, USA, instantly captivating scientists. The holotype, believed to be an adult, showcased an astonishing level of armor, prompting its founder to name it Ankylosaurus, meaning fused lizard. The specimen was also given the scientific name Magnavent, referring to its wide midsection, which gave it a very unique appearance. But what made the Ankylosaurus so distinct, and why was it so well protected? So distinct and different from previously found dinosaurs, paleontologists decided that they needed to create an entirely new group for it, which they promptly named the Ankylosauria. This group of animals is defined as herbivorous dinosaurs from the Cleoresia suborder who possess small and large bony shields that were fused together, completely covering their back and sides. Within this group, the Ankylosaurus belongs to the Ankylosauridae, whose members were further characterized by massive triangular skulls, short necks, stiff backs, broad bodies, and osteoderms. The first of its kind to be discovered, the Ankylosaurus has remained significant in that it's also the largest known ankylosaur thus far, with adults measuring anywhere from 5.4 meters, 17 feet, to 10 meters, 33 feet, while standing 1.7 meters, 5'7", at the hips. On top of this, adults could weigh between 5 and 8 tons, making it heavier than the giant Triceratops that lived alongside it, and even comparable to the earlier Spinosaurus. This fact often confuses people because, to the naked eye, both the Triceratops and Spinosaurus appear much larger than the Ankylosaurus, which leads to the question, why does the Ankylosaurus seem so much smaller compared to them? Why was it so heavy, despite not necessarily being very long or tall? The answer is quite simple. It's because of its extremely robust body. The Ankylosaurus was constructed like a living tank, possessing short, broad, and compressed bones that gave it a solid foundation for defense, which was further enhanced by the presence of bony armor that covered over half of its body. The Ankylosaurus was heavily armored, with its body covered in osteoderms, bony plates and knobs embedded within its skin. These plates varied in size and were distributed across the body, with larger plates likely concentrated around vulnerable areas, like its neck, offering the best protection. However, paleontologists are still unsure about the exact arrangement of these plates, as no specimen has been found with the armor in place. The number of osteoderms also remains uncertain, with estimates ranging from 30 to over 100, but most paleontologists agree that these bony structures provided incredible protection, making the Ankylosaurus a formidable creature in its time. What is known is that the Ankylosaurus possessed unique and special armored plates, distinct from those seen in other ankylosaurs. Specifically, its osteoderms were thinner than most and had a hollow underside. While this might seem inferior compared to solid, thicker armor, it actually benefited the Ankylosaurus, granting it greater flexibility and making it more resistant to crushing bites, like those from the T-Rex. The hollowed structure created a dome-like shape, adding strength and enabling the Ankylosaurus to endure higher levels of pressure without the osteoderms shattering. In addition to this, the Ankylosaurus had another defense boost: collagen fibers that were embedded in its armor, further enhancing its protection and resilience. Randomly placed beneath its armor, these collagen fibers were much thicker than the ones seen in armored living animals today, like crocodiles and armadillos. They helped the Ankylosaurus with force distribution, shock absorption, ligament and muscle attachment, and even growth and repair. All in all, these fibers, coupled with its osteoderms, made the Ankylosaurus one of, if not the toughest animal around in Cretaceous North America. Studies have found its armor to be strong enough to even withstand small gunfire. Along with this impenetrable defense, the Ankylosaurus was a true marvel of natural protection. The Ankylosaurus had yet another tool or weapon up its sleeve that made it one tough beast: its legendary tail club. Just like its bony armor, the tail club was made of osteoderms, 2 large plates, 2 smaller osteoderms at the tip, and a row of smaller ones along the midline. Fossil evidence shows that the club could reach up to 22.5 inches in width and weigh around 50 pounds, 23 kilograms. This made it heavy, but still light enough for the Ankylosaurus to wield with great force, thanks to large tail muscles and stiff tendons that allowed it to swing with incredible speed and power. A recent study found that large individuals could strike with over 20,000 newtons of force, enough to break bone. For comparison, a professional baseball player hits a ball with only 13 newtons of force, which makes the Ankylosaurus's tail strike 370 times more powerful. This tail was a fearsome weapon that would have made any predator think twice before attacking, cementing the Ankylosaurus as one of the toughest and most well-armored dinosaurs to ever walk the earth. There's still no definitive evidence showing exactly how often the Ankylosaurus used its tail club in defense, as no clear signs of strikes have been found on predator fossils. This opens up the debate of whether the club was primarily for defense against other predators, or if it was more likely used for social dominance among its own kind, like the smaller Ankylosaur zool. Some believe that the club was designed for fighting members of its own species, especially during times when dominance was at stake, while others still maintain that it was used to defend against predators like the T-Rex. While the evidence for this remains inconclusive, the size, armor, and power of the Ankylosaurus made it a difficult target for any predator. Its unique features, such as its tough, bony armor and strong clubbed tail, made it an almost impenetrable fortress, ensuring its survival in the dangerous environments it inhabited. Adulthood, the Ankylosaurus was an almost impenetrable fortress. Its robust armor and powerful tail club made it one of the toughest dinosaurs to take down. However, juveniles were not as well defended and were likely easy targets for predators. During adolescence, their armor and tail clubs were not fully formed, meaning they couldn't break bones with their clubs or defend themselves effectively with their armor. To counter this vulnerability, young Ankylosaurus would often gather in groups for protection. This social behavior helped reduce the chances of any one individual being singled out by predators. However, these groups likely couldn't deter a fully matured T-Rex, which was a formidable predator. As they reached adulthood, Ankylosaurus would have been far less vulnerable, making them nearly untouchable to most carnivores, including the terrifying T-Rex. Adulthood, this totally changed. Despite the common belief, Ankylosaurs were likely solitary as adults, with their armor and club providing more than enough security. Since they did not wander in herds, the Ankylosaurus was not an ecosystem engineer, as originally thought. Unlike Hadrosaurus and living elephants, which change landscapes as they pass through by eating vegetation, the Ankylosaurus likely did not have the same effect. This isn't to say, however, that the Ankylosaurus had no impact on its environment. Their massive presence and behavior would still have influenced the landscape in indirect ways, even if they weren't actively altering it like other herbivores. The Ankylosaurus was no small-time eater. It had a huge appetite. Despite preferring plant-based food, its low body and wide muzzle suggest it likely fed on abundant ferns and low-growing shrubs that covered the land. While these plants weren't very high in calories, an adult Ankylosaurus still needed to consume around 60 kilograms, 130 psalms, of food daily, which is similar to what large elephants eat. This number might have been smaller if the Ankylosaurus supplemented its diet with fruits or invertebrates that got caught in the vegetation. Regardless of its diet, it was clear that it had to eat a large quantity of food, which meant it needed an efficient way to process it. The tool it used to process all that food was its teeth. The Ankylosaurus's teeth were cusp-like and had interesting protrusions that helped it cut vegetation into small pieces. It also had a narrow beak that could easily strip leaves off plants. Once the food was inside its body, the Ankylosaurus had another unique feature that assisted in digestion. Its digestive system was specially adapted for breaking down large amounts of tough plant material. This digestive process is believed to have operated through hindgut fermentation. This method involves the help of symbiotic bacteria to break down food and is found in many large herbivorous animals today, one example being the rhino. Such fermentation requires large vats, which are usually seen in the form of a widened abdomen. Therefore, the broad midsection of the Ankylosaurus is thought to have functioned as its fermentation vat. This digestive technique may have given it an edge over other herbivores, further aided by its keen sense of smell. Capabilities of the structure of its nasal passages and the large size of its olfactory bulb suggest that the Ankylosaurus had an exceptional sense of smell, capable of detecting if food was rotten, ripe, or hidden beneath a thick layer of vegetation. Additionally, its sense of smell was likely its primary method of detecting nearby predators, as while it did have stereoscopic vision, its eyesight wasn't the best. Another area where Ankylosaurus showed adaptability was in its ability to survive in its environment, using its senses to avoid threats and locate food. Another aspect where the Ankylosaurus wasn't the most refined was its speed. Due to its bulky size, it was likely slow-moving, probably no faster than a walking human, with quick bursts only possible during dire situations. However, thanks to all its defenses, the Ankylosaurus simply didn't need to be fast to be successful and widespread. Fossil evidence shows that despite its relatively slow movement, it thrived in its environment and was a dominant presence. Discoveries show that the Ankylosaurus resided in northwestern America and Alberta, Canada. Within these lands, it preferred forested floodplains with relatively subtropical climates. Such areas were absolutely filled with life, much like the famed Hell Creek Formation. Thus, the Ankylosaurus thrived in these ecosystems, surrounded by a variety of other prehistoric creatures. The Ankylosaurus lived alongside many well-known dinosaurs, including the T-Rex, Denverosaurus, Dracorex, Pachycephalosaurus, Plateosaurus, Stegosaurus, Torosaurus, Triceratops, Leptoceratops, Tonoceratops, Edmontosaurus, Thescelosaurus, Ornithomimus, Triolophosaurus, Nanotyrannus, Struthiomimus, Anzu, Aceraptor, Avisaurus, Dakotaraptor, treads, and birds. Non-dinosaurs were also found in these lands, including insects, mollusks, frogs, salamanders, bony fish, cardiform fish, and a mix of pterosaurs, turtles, lizards, snakes, Champsosaurus, crocodilomorphs like the Borealosuchus, and mammals such as Cimolomus, Sodon, Simus, Acidon, Meniscoesis, Meodastigmus, Paradon, Alidon, Diodon, Lapis, Nanochurus, Pralon, Alacreus, and Purgatorius. This extreme level of biodiversity shows just how vibrant the ecosystem was during this time. The diversity was enabled by the presence of large river systems that supported an abundance of angiosperms, conifers, ferns, moss, shrubs, and vines. Studies on the formation sediments also show that monsoons, tropical storms, and occasional forest fires kept the ecosystem quite lively. For the Ankylosaurus, the richness of these areas allowed it to thrive from 68 to 66 million years ago. Paleontologists have noted that it wasn't the most populous animal around, with only 1% of finds in Hell Creek being Ankylosaurus. This meant it probably didn't have as many offspring, and again implies that it was not a social creature. The Ankylosaurus, though a true armored giant, met its end during the KT extinction event, an event that forever changed life on Earth. Despite its tough armor and massive size, the asteroid impact and the climate changes proved too much for this incredible dinosaur. But what if I told you that the Ankylosaurus wasn't the only giant to face this fate? There's another lesser-known dinosaur whose fate was equally as dramatic, and its story might just surprise you. Want to know who it is? Stay tuned for our next video to find out. And before you go, make sure to subscribe, like the video, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment below, letting us know what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts.